what you are doing is not so important. How you are doing is important. What you feel, what your feelings are while doing the act, what has inspired you, what is your motive, that is more important than what you are actually doing, how much you are actually doing. What does that do? That makes us pure and perfect. If we can do these acts in this way, feel in this way, think in this way, and act and perform, then this one single small act becomes worship, and it makes us pure and perfect. And as said beautifully, the blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Subject is Karma Yoga. So Karma Yoga means to unite. Yoga normally means, literally means to, it comes from the word yog. Actually the word is yog. So when it comes in English it becomes yoga. So it's actually yog. Yog means to add. So to add means to add two or more things. If there is one, you cannot add. If everything is one, you cannot add. So there must be at least two or more. So union of two. What is the two? One is the individual self and the other is the supreme self. Okay, which is known as Atman or Brahman. So yoga means to unite, and the path that we adopt to unite with the supreme becomes that path. If we choose the path of action, that is karma, it becomes karma yoga. To unite with the supreme through or by means of karma. Okay, so that is the literal meaning, but actually there is a higher meaning of yoga. And the higher meaning is, it's beautifully said in the Srimad Bhagavad Gita that Sri Krishna says to Arjuna that when Arjuna was not willing to fight, then he inspired Arjuna to fight, the Kurukshetra. And then he said that, how will you fight? Okay, I am going to perform my work. In Arjuna's case, the work was to fight a war, a battle. He was on the battlefield. And now this is a battlefield for us. Each and every moment, the moment we start the day, it's a battlefield for us. Okay. So now we have to fight the battle. That is for sure. But how? That's the most important thing. If we know the technique well, then the battle is half won. And then its implementation, that remains. So Sri Krishna tells Arjuna that you will fight, you must fight. But how? Then he says, Yogastha Kuru Karmani. That means be established in yoga, and then Kuru Karmani, perform your work. How to perform your work? To be established in yoga. Yogastha Kuru Karmani Sangam Tattva Dhananjaya. Sangam means attachment. So be rooted in yoga and perform your actions and be unattached. Unattached to the fruits of action. And then in the second line he goes on to elaborate the meaning of yoga, the actual meaning. Then he says, Siddhya Siddhyo, Siddhya Asiddhyo, Samam Bhutva. Siddhi means to become successful. That's Siddhi. And Asiddhi means to fail. Siddhi, opposite is Asiddhi. So to come out successful in flying colors and to fail, that means just the opposite. Siddhya Asiddhyo, Samam Bhutva. Consider both of these as one, equal. Consider both of these as equal, and when you will have the capacity to look at both of them, both of these contradictory things, the success and failure as equal, Siddhya Asiddhyo Samam Bhutva Samatyam Yoga Uchyate. consider or see the success and failure both as equal. Why? Samatyam yoga uchyate. This equanimity of mind or this sameness, that I see everything as the same. Success, failure, it is the same. Good, bad, whatever contradictory things that we see, that creates the world. Whenever there is disparity, whenever there is this, chaos in the equilibrium, that creation starts. When it's totally in equilibrium, there is no creation. So, that knowledge which enables us to have this knowledge of equanimity, to see everything as same, the apparently contradictory things like success and failure as the same, that is Samatyam Yoga Uchyate. Uchyate means is told. This knowledge of equanimity, where you will see this success and failure as same, that knowledge is known as yoga. That is the actual meaning of yoga. But that can only happen when you know the Supreme. So when you unite with the Supreme. So in that sense, it's all the same. But actually to attain this sameness of mind, to attain this equanimity of mind, to see everything as same, as one, that is known as yoga. That state is known as yoga. So the path that we adopt in order to reach that state becomes the path. Either if it is through action, then it's karma yoga. If it is through psychic control of breath and everything, that becomes Raja Yoga. If it is by means of knowledge, discrimination between the real and the unreal, looking at the mind, giving up the unreal and pursuing the reality, that's known as Jnana Yoga. And if it is through devotion, through dedication to your ideal, that becomes Bhakti Yoga. So, Karma Yoga, what we actually first know, that I am doing something good for others. That makes me feel good, if I can do some good for others. So, that motive must always be there. And that is the apparent motive that we start for doing something good to others. Okay. Then gradually, as we tread along the path of spirituality, we come to know that actually I cannot help others. It's a means, a method, a path by which I unfurl the divinity in me. Like the roses you see on the terrace, when they are in the unfurled form, in a bud, the whole rose is there, isn't it? But only in a sense, unmanifested. So, with time, it goes on manifesting itself. That small bud becomes such a big rose, isn't it? But it was there, potentially. So, these means, by action or by psychic control or by devotion or gyan, that is knowledge, discrimination between the real and the unreal, what we do, we unfurl the divinity within us, which is like a budding form. We manifest that divinity, and that becomes a beautiful thing to see, isn't it? The rose, when bloomed, is undoubtedly beautiful than the bud, is not it? Similarly, that divinity is always within us, and that is why it is said, as Swami Vivekananda said, that each soul is potentially divine. To bring out that divinity, to manifest this divinity, is the main work. And the path that you adopt becomes your sadhana. That becomes the path, either Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga or Raja Yoga. So here we are discussing about karma. So that must be our first motive, our driving factor, to help others. Okay, it's a good thing to help others. But normally, as we tread the path of spirituality, and as this divinity unfolds in me, then I see that actually it's not that I am helping others. In a sense, I am helping myself. That person in front of you, whom you have given a very good meal, out of a very generous feeling in you, he is satisfied with the meal and he is smiling, and that's a wonderful thing to see, you know. But in the evening he will be again be hungry. But that small incident, what it has done, it has permanently opened up your heart. That transformation which you have traveled, that transformation is with you. And the person is undoubtedly benefited, yeah, for some time, but you are benefited in a much, much more substantial way, isn't it? You offer him a food of 100 rupees, and what do you get? It's 100 into 100, or 100 to the power of 100. So that is what we get. So in that sense, we cannot help others, we help ourselves. And in another sense, everything is Brahman. You and you, the giver, that remains, you know, until and unless we reach that point of or state of oneness, that remains the giver and the taker. So at the beginning I am the giver and the person in front of me is the taker. But as we proceed in the path of spirituality, as we develop this difference between the giver and the taker, it diminishes, and a time comes when I see the taker is none other than the giver himself. I am giving to myself. It's me reflected in another form, in another name. Just the name and form, but it's me. It's me serving me. That is what we read yesterday, that how can you serve the Lord? How can you help the Lord? You can serve Him, you can love Him. But how can you help Him? So, this is how our idea, our thoughts change with our spiritual development. Not just by doing work. You go on doing work and you go on, you know, feeding the downtrodden, giving, doing charities and everything. You may do it for thousands of years, and if you are not in the path of spirituality, it is not going to help you. I am sorry to say that. That will only go on to increase your ego. You will try to see your name in the front page of the paper, newspaper next day, you know. And if your name is printed in a wrong way, you will be very angry. Or if the name of your other friends are published and your name is not there, then God save it. So, you must have that spiritual journey. Then that karma becomes karma yoga. Else, that karma becomes a karma bandhan, that is, an action which binds you more and more. So the thing is, the spiritual journey, method may be different, doesn't matter. I may proceed in one, by means of one way, you know, you may proceed by bhakti, he may proceed by the path of karma. Hardly matters. What matters is, what is the goal? What is the goal? The goal is to reach that state of oneness, reach that state of equanimity. So yesterday we were discussing this. So as of now, the last thing we discussed yesterday, that a young chap, a young boy or a girl, he or she is full of hopes. To him the world is, you know, something very juicy. He wants to extract all the juice for himself and enjoy the world. It's a place of enjoyment. It's a place of, you know, like fantasy, you know. I will do this, I will do that. It is like that. And to a person who is about to die, to him the world is just the opposite. Hopeless, nothing to do, no one will care for you. Whatever you may do, however hard you may try to please others, no one is going to be pleased. You cannot satisfy anyone. That is his realization, his feelings. And what does Swamiji says? Swami Vivekananda says, both are foolish. The young chap and this old man, both are foolish. Why? Both are foolish nevertheless. Life is good or evil according to the state of mind in which we look at it. It depends upon the state of mind. If I am happy, the world is happy. Isn't it? When I am happy and I see someone with a grumpy face, I think, why are you grumpy? You know, there is so many things to enjoy. Come on, laugh, enjoy. And the day I am grumpy, when I see someone smiling, I will be just, how can he smile? So, it's just the change of state of mind. So, if we know the art to keep our mind always happy, I will be happy even when I am 16, 26, 36, 46, 56, 66, 76, 86. Doesn't matter. I must know the art to be happy. Because that happiness will not depend on anything else. Not any external object. Not any other person. It will be dependent on God or my real self. That is it. Which is never absent, whose absence you can never feel. He is the only truth. Why he is the only truth? He or that self, the supreme self, is the only one thing which was, which is, and which always will be. So there is no absence of the supreme. And when my happiness depends on that, which is always there, and it may be always there, but it is far from me, then it's of no use, It must be with me. And if it is with me, then also it's of use, but not totally, because when I am asleep, I get away from that, I must, and if it is with me, I will always also have a hope of, fear of losing it. Isn't it? A person who keeps a $10 in his pocket and he is moving along the city is not so worried. But a person who is having $10,000 in his pocket and moving around the city in public transport, he will always be, very cautious. He will see everyone as a pickpocketer, like, what is it? So, he will be fearful always. And what is the fear of losing it? So, it must be with me, and not only with me, I must be one with it, so that there is no chance of losing it for a single moment. So, I must be one with it. And that is the aim of all the yogas, to be one with the Supreme. Life is good or evil according to the state of mind in which we look at it. In itself, it is neither. It's neither good nor bad. It is as my thought is, as I am. The same world seems to be very good, very beautiful, very happy, and very sunny and bright, and one day and just the other day it may be like very gloomy, but it's all the same world. It depends upon me. So the world is neither good nor bad. It's neither happy nor sad. It's neither hopeful nor hopeless. It depends on my state of mind where I am standing this moment. So I have to know the art of making myself happy, satisfied in myself, not to be satisfied with others. What do we always do? We want to be satisfied with others, If he is good, then I am good. Okay. The moment we think that if he or she is good, then I am good, I am sorry to say that you are creating or you are inviting trouble for yourself. I must be good no matter what. It doesn't mean that if a man is dying and you are laughing, oh, I am good. No, not that. That is not the state. If you see a man in trouble, if you see a man in a bad condition, he will surely go and help you or help. It's for sure. So we have to go or attain that state. Fire in itself is neither good nor evil, as we are reading history. Fire, you can cook for 1,000 persons with the same fire by which you can burn 1,000 houses. You cannot blame the fire. Oh, it is not me, it's the fire which is burnt. No, the mind which was behind using the fire. That is what is responsible. So, as Bhagavan says very beautifully, that a knife with which a murderer murders someone, when it comes to in the hand of a doctor, he can save a person by doing a surgery. So it does not depend upon the knife, it depends upon the mind which uses the knife. So world in itself is as it is, neither good nor bad. It depends on which state I am, how I am. If I am good, the world is good. If I am bad, the world is bad. So, one who thinks the world is full of evils, he is also foolish. And one who thinks the world is full of good and hope and joy and this, he is also foolish. You have to go beyond both, happiness and sorrow, and find the truth. Then you can get the bliss, the happiness which is forever. Because this happiness won't transform with your age. Because that person who is telling today that the world is hopeless and nothing is there, that person was very hopeful when he was like 16, 17, 18. But with the change of time, everything changed. But when we cross the barriers, when we go beyond this good and bad and all these apparent contradictions of this world, this phenomenon world, and when we come to know the truth, the reality, the supreme, the Brahman, which is my real nature, then this happiness which I get or the bliss which I get, it does not transform with age. On the contrary, it increases. It increases. With my dissolving in the Supreme, this bliss goes on increasing. So the world is not to be blamed for good or bad. Swamiji says, nobody but me to blame. It's me, nobody else. The day we can understand this very small sentence, nobody but me to blame, the world will be a much peaceful place. Because every day you just open the TV, you open your newspaper, what do you see? Blame game. That is what it is. One person blaming another, one party blaming another. So, the world is as it is. So, the world depends on how we are, how our state of mind is. As Swamiji gives the example of fire. Fire in itself is neither good nor evil. When it keeps us warm, we say how beautiful fire is. Now we understand it. It's cold, and if we lit a fire and we are sitting around it and it's keeping us warm, we say, it's so beautiful. So when it keeps us warm, we say how beautiful fire is. When it burns our finger, we blame it. Is the fire to be blamed, really? You cannot. Still in itself, it is neither good nor bad. Beautiful. Even if a child, he doesn't know what a fire is, even if he puts his hand in the fire, it will burn. You cannot blame the fire. The world is like that. You cannot blame the world. It is as it is. According as we use it, it produces in us the feeling of good or bad as we use the fire. The fire is not to be blamed. It is, if someone is to be blamed, it is the mind which uses the fire. So, the fire in itself is neither good nor bad. It is fire, just fire. Similarly, the world is as it is, neither good nor bad. What actually makes good or bad is our mind. If my mind is good, everything is good. If my mind is bad, everything is bad. That's it. It's plain and simple. But we don't understand this simple thing. It takes a lifetime, even after hearing this, reading this, to understand this single sentence. According as we use it, it produces in us the feeling of good or bad. So also is this world. It is perfect. Everything is perfect. By perfection is meant that it is perfectly fitted to meet its end. By perfect means that whatever you need, it is there. Like the market. Someone goes to the market and he is going to the wine shop. He needs wine. And somebody goes to the market and goes to the milk shop. He needs milk. So is the market good or bad? No, it's my necessity which makes it good or bad. That's it. So the market is perfect in itself. There is everything there. There is everything. Similarly is the world. It's perfect in itself. Now it is up to us to decide what we need. And that is why Bhagavan says very beautifully, it's not the Shastra, the scriptures or the Guru or someone else. Ask your mind, inquire your mind, oh mind, what do you need? Because the world is like a market. Everything is there. Whatever you need, everything is there. So, inquire your mind. Ask your mind again and again, oh my mind, why did I come here? What is the cause? What do I need? You will get the answer. We may all be perfectly sure that it will go on beautifully without us. It's a very strong thing, but very practical thing. Normally, I don't know whether in the West you say like this or not, but we are used up hearing this, in our houses, that the elder ones, they say, oh, when I will not be there, then you will understand how it is. Their elders told to them, they passed away, the world was fine. Now they are telling, they will pass away, the world will be fine. Then I will be telling, then I will pass away, the world will be fine. So Swamiji says that we may all be perfectly sure that it will go on beautifully without us. So we don't have to bother about anything. It will go on perfectly, beautifully without us. Might be more beautiful if I am not there. And we need not bother our heads wishing to help it. So then, shall we not do good deeds? Shall we not help others? Shall we not help someone who is in need of help? Of course. But don't think that you are the giver, you are the helper, and he is the one being helped. You are the giver and he is the taker. You are superior and he is inferior. No. Rather see it as a chance that he has given you the chance to manifest that divinity within you. So be thankful to him. But what do we think? If I have helped someone, he must be thankful to me. Whole his life, But someone has helped me also sometime. Oh, it was, everyone does that. But when I do something, oh no, it was such a great job, you see. So we must help. The motive must be there to help others, of course. Else what is the difference between a wall and me? It is also neither good nor bad, but it is still a wall. It cannot help others. But I can. You can. So, we have to do good. But with the knowledge that even if I don't, the world will go on perfectly beautiful. Don't think that if I am not going to do it, no one is going to do it. No. Do it. When you have got the chance to help someone, do it. Undoubtedly, that's a great deed. But don't think yourself to be superior than the person in front of you. That is the main thing. Yet we must do good. The desire to do good is the highest motive power we have. That is with us. What? The desire to do good. First it will be out of help, like it's good to help. Then it will be out of love. Then it will be out of love. So, yet we must do good. Though we must know that the world is not going to stand for me. The world is not going to wait for me. That if he does not do good, if Swami Shankarananda does not do good, there will be no good things in the world. If I think like this, I am a stupid person, I am a foolish person. The most foolish person in the world. I must know that the world will go on beautifully without my help. Yet, if I get a chance and opportunity to help someone, I must be ready to help. Seeing it as a chance to serve the Lord. Seeing it as a chance to love myself in another name and form. Yet we must do good. The desire to do good is the highest motive power we have. If we know all the time that it is a privilege to help others. It's a privilege that God has given me the chance to do good. And I must take that opportunity, of course. But what? Do not stand on a high pedestal and take 5 cents in your hand and say, "Here, my poor man." No. Not that. Beautifully said. Do not stand on a high pedestal. On the contrary, kneel down before him and offer him your best. And be thankful and grateful to the person you are giving, that you have given me a chance to develop my divinity, to develop myself, to have this wonderful feeling of serving the Lord. So don't stand on a high pedestal. On the contrary, kneel down, bow down before him. That is karma yoga. Then that karma becomes yoga. Else, if you stand on a high pedestal and you say, "Here, my poor man," it doesn't mean, it becomes a karma, but not a karma yoga. On the contrary, it is going to bring you back, pull you back from the Supreme. Do not stand on a high pedestal and take 5 cents in your hand and say, "Here, my poor man," but be grateful that the poor man is there, so that by making a gift to him, you are able to help yourself. That must be the thing. So it becomes a beautiful thing. Just one single action becomes a worship. It becomes an act of, divinity. It becomes a divine act. It becomes an act which is to be behold. If we can see it in this way, if we can think in this way, if we can do it in this way. It is not the receiver that is blessed, but it is the giver. What do you think? I have given him, oh, he is blessed. But it is just the other way around. It's not him that he is blessed. It is actually me that who is blessed. That I got the opportunity to serve someone, to love or to help myself. I got that opportunity. Be thankful that you are allowed to exercise your power of benevolence and mercy in the world. Be thankful that you got a chance to express these good qualities, these divine qualities, and thus become pure and perfect. These acts, when done in this way, what you are doing is not so important. How you are doing is important. What you feel, what your feelings are while doing the act, what has inspired you, what is your motive, that is more important than what you are actually doing, how much you are actually doing. So, and what does that do? That makes us pure and perfect. If we can do these acts in this way, feel in this way, think in this way, and act and perform, then this one single small act becomes worship, and it makes us pure and perfect. And as said beautifully, pure are the blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Said by Jesus. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. So these acts, when done in this way, makes us pure and perfect. So be thankful to Him that I have done just a little, but what I have gained is a way, a means to see the Lord, to realize myself. So who must be thankful, he or me? Just depend upon how we see. That is what is said in Vedanta. The world is as it is. Only depends on how we see at it, how we look at it. Be thankful that you are allowed to exercise your power of benevolence and mercy in the world, and thus become pure and perfect. All good acts tend to make us pure and perfect. All good acts, when done in this way, they surely make us, or they just push us towards purity and perfectness. And as I said, beautifully said by Jesus, that blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Small acts as such makes me, ready to see God, to realize the Supreme. So I must be ever thankful to all the persons who gave me the chance, the opportunities to manifest these benevolent virtues within me, and thus become pure and perfect. Pure enough to have a look at the Lord.